Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So, Elon Musk is proposing that some AI programs and whatnot replace federal workers. And I know a lot of people had hate for the feds. But what worries me is that a tech mogul is gutting the government and trying to make less jobs. Now, remember when I talked about in my other videos, it's better, okay, there's illegal immigrants, they're doing cheap labor to make cheap products because Americans like cheap products. And when you pay a high wage, you get passed off to the consumer, and then people consume less. Businesses don't make enough capital or profit, they go under, there's less jobs. Okay? And I pointed out in a community post, it's better to have cheap jobs than no jobs. I was watching a mini documentary on the poverty of Madagascar. And you look at how many of those people, they don't have jobs. There's nothing for them to do. They really are in some serious poverty. And I thought about how those people would prefer to be picking avocados and at least have some sort of income rather than just waiting for government aid. Okay? And I thought further about Mexico, how when there's not enough jobs, the cartels will always have jobs because they're drug smuggling, human smuggling, brothels, bringing people to America. You know, they do have a lot of work for people, and they make stacks of cash. So gangs will have jobs for people, but the government won't. And so when we're losing too many jobs, and so I think if you go around your community as well, you'll see a lot of for lease signs. You'll see a lot of, for rent. It's not that great. It's really depressing. I remember Tim Dillon talking about this as well not too long ago. Maybe about a month ago, he was just saying as well, it was depressing in California to see such a slow recovery from the lockdowns and how much the lockdowns really decimated people's work ethic and financial standing. And so then people get into UBI, Universal Basic Income, lots of nonsense like that. But I don't think it's a good idea to just use AI to replace people. Now, I will say, we have a laundromat. When the machines break, if you call on the weekend, you talk to a bot. Those automated voices. Program works pretty well, it takes under 5 minutes. And also in the app, you can now, because before you could put quarters, now they made a switch to an app. So if the machine goes down, you scan the code, and then you do the report. Takes less than 5 minutes to do. So I know there's some efficiency, but when something like the federal government, you do need some people. And I'm sure you've had that experience where you want to talk to an actual human. You have a question, you have a request, and you have to press 0, and it takes forever to get to a human. This is really troubling. I think we should be careful with how many jobs we cut and how much we rely on AI. I don't think it's going to be that wonderful to just have computers run our lives. And Elon Musk with his brain chips, his Neuralink, the electronic cars being able to track wherever you go and be remotely hacked. I just think it's kind of scary how fast we're going to. Every bit of your life is recorded and tracked. Your phone listens to you, Alexa listens to you. It's really getting into the Chinese territory of Skynet, to be honest with you. Now, as Muslims, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always watching us. Every act we do is recorded, But when it comes to the government and creepos watching you all the time, it's just kind of strange, And then you look at how freedom of speech can be curtailed. I recall watching an interview of a guy who, when he was doing his protests in China, the government called him sick and institutionalized him and put him on medication until he changed his stances. They re-educated him. And then you look at how Trump is sending some criminals to Gitmo. And Gitmo is not a pretty place. And they haven't released the names of these criminals so we can look up their files and see what exactly is it that they did to deserve to go to Gitmo. This is intense. And then you look at how El Salvador, it says they'll take American citizens. And I like the way El Salvador has changed their prison program, but it just seems like, you're going to send American citizens to a foreign country's labor camp. It seems kind of fishy to me, you know. Could it be a deterrent? Sure. But my point is, to get back to the main proposition I'm discussing, when you cut too many jobs, sure, it's the bourgeoisie. If you recall when you had the Germans and Russians fighting with each other, the educated class, the professors and whatnot, a lot of them were killed. The Marxists had a disdain for the ivory tower class. And this caused a brain drain. Some of their greatest minds to be eliminated. And later on, the United States, Operation, was it Paperclip? I forget the name of the operation. Redwoods? They brought over a bunch of former Nazis, and NASA was started by Nazis. Werner von Braun, I recall his name, was a famous one. You know, they brought over those war criminals to utilize their brains. Okay? But one thing that the Nazis did, and the Germans essentially, there's the Germans and then there's the really Nazi-esque Germans, but that culture for a time, including the Russians, because of fascism and communism, you know, they didn't respect the smart people. So when you go after teachers, Trump wants to get rid of the Department of Education and stuff like that, you start to get a little worried, because I think of Socrates in that time, right? When Plato watched Socrates drink hemlock because of the mob, that he was corrupting the youth, getting them to think. You're going to create some chaos here. So if you cut jobs, you create more criminals. It's getting harder and harder to be an entrepreneur. A lot of regulation, a lot of red tape. If you look at, like in India, so many people turn to scamming because there's not enough decent jobs. We're all familiar with the Indian scamming call centers. Okay? Some of them have gotten really clever. You know, really clever with their scams. And it's troubling that when you really look at how people are cheering job destruction, you gotta remember, so they're kicking out the illegal immigrants, which, you know, they want to have high-paying jobs, which means less Americans are going to line up for those jobs. To be honest, it's quite a difficult job. I know the generations of Mike Rowe, dirty jobs. I watched that with my kids. These are tough jobs that men used to do, but the new generation of men want to do crypto rug pulls. They want to manage women's OnlyFans pages. The young men of today are very different than my grandpa's generation. Okay? I have mentioned, I have never seen or heard an elementary, middle school, high school, or college tell people they need to go pick cherries in the field. Everyone pushes their kids to become doctors, lawyers, work in the financial district, right? Everyone wants that CEO position like in the series Succession. They want blowing out of control money. They want to be the wolves of Wall Street. They don't respect the farmer. We're not in the 17th century where, you know, pioneers are like, hey, we're going to have a farm and a homestead and sell milk and bushels of wheat and buckets of potatoes. We're not that country anymore. And I worry about food scarcity. So many countries struggle with food scarcity. Okay? And I know there's programs for temporary visa programs for farm workers, but you're still importing foreign labor, and they still want to get discriminated against. Since the white supremacist nationalist Christians, they want to kick out all the brown people, how many Anglo-Saxons want to go work in the field? Yes, Irish people were fine being potato farmers and all that. We're not that people anymore. As I just mentioned, they chose to work in bars and pubs. You know, they got into the vodka business. I haven't kept track with what their community is doing now. but they're not in the fields as much. Okay? And so it's important, just like Italians don't have olive groves. They're not making street food. The point is that I think we should be very wary of cutting too many jobs because we push people to crime. Okay? If you're killing more jobs than creating jobs, we're only helping crime. And when you're a good person and poverty consumes all around you, it's very dangerous for women. Okay? And the Second Amendment can protect women's lives, but liberals want to take away the Second Amendment. So if you look at women in other countries where there's poverty, they're not allowed to carry knives, pepper spray, or any tool of self-defense. Okay? And they're just at the whims of the evil men's desires. And evil women. There's tons of female criminals. Okay? America has the most female prisoners. And there's a reason for that. Because our culture is very rotted. Very rotted. So, let's keep an eye on Elon Musk. I don't see why Elon Musk has the authority to put Fed workers, and AI can always be tricked, hacked. Why should we just blindly trust it? Remember when you go into the store now and you see those automatic checkouts? Because the companies didn't want to pay actual cashiers. They don't even let the cashiers have a stool to sit on. They force them to stand for 10 hours, in the same spot, which is really hard on your knees and lower back. That's why you see a lot of cashiers with those knee braces and whatnot. Ugh. And then, theft went up. There's tons of, like Walmart, for example, they lose a lot of money because people figured out how to pretend to scan items, so then there's a lot of loss in revenue in that regard. So wherever you look at where machines are taking over, that's jobs being taken. And remember, the police force is funded through tax dollars. A lot of it. And if there's not businesses paying into that tax, your economy is more dead. And America is really going down, and I don't really see a whole lot of people trying to fix that. We're still young in Trump's term, obviously. But Elon Musk, this robber baron on his way to be a trillionaire who hates Muslims and is a weirdo, is trying to cut jobs using his Doge to get involved with the Treasury, getting access to data as a private citizen. He is not born in America. He's from South Africa. He has a conflict of interest because he's a tech guy. How is he running his companies when he's doing all this stuff? I mean, I don't know how someone has time for all that. Who's raising his kids? Nannies. Like, he's not even being a good dad. He puts one of his sons with the weird name, the math name or whatever, on his shoulders. But I just find this strange. Very strange what's happening here. A guy who's really into tech and wants to put it into your body wants to replace federal workers with AI. And calling humans lazy. A guy who creates robots who could never stop working, calling humans lazy. But he professes to care about humanity and birth rates, even though the Tesla company pays for your travel expenses to get an abortion. It's just a lot of fishy things going on, my friends. Let me know what you think. We'll keep an eye on that. But, things are getting weird. Things are getting real weird. Take care. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all and preserve us. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and join the blog.